Jesus' name. I'm going to ask Sister Arnetta to come on up. You can be seated. So today we are talking about mental health and faith. So let me go ahead and get this out of the way. My hand is bandaged up. I did have surgery this past week. Everything is good. Life is great. I can't stop coughing, and so I'm not contagious, I promise. I've done well this morning, and I wasn't coughing very much until right before I walked up here, and you know how that goes. It decided to freak out. So anyway, I am glad you're here, and I hope that you feel like participating with us, although we may get to talking and not give them a chance to say anything. Let's start with Psalm 34, 17, and 18. The righteous cry, and the Lord heareth, and delivereth them out of all their troubles. The Lord is nigh unto them that are of a broken heart, and saveth such as be of a contrite spirit. Philippians 4, 6, and 7. Be careful for nothing, but in everything by prayer and supplication with thanksgiving, let your requests be made known unto God. And the peace of God, which passeth all understanding, shall keep your hearts and minds through Christ Jesus. So when we talk about mental health, I want to clarify, first of all, sometimes we talk about mental health and we're using that term in substitute of a condition: grief, anxiety, depression. And we talk about mental health when actuality, think about your own physical health. We talk about the nation's health care system, right? You're taking care of your health. It's the same kind of thing when we talk about mental health. We're wanting to take care of the health of our emotions and how we process things. The World Health Organization says mental health is a state of well-being in which an individual realizes their own abilities and can cope with the normal stresses of life, can work productively, and is able to make a contribution to their community. Now that right there, you may have heard, okay, I'm struggling. That's all right. The U.S. Department of Health and Human Services notes that mental health encompasses your emotional, psychological, and social well-being. So it's more than just, I'm depressed, or it's more than I'm stressed at work and I can't cope. It encompasses a lot of things. Now, you may look at Sister Arnetta and think, but she's a doctor of food, diet. But what I love about her is her specialty is in the psychology behind food. Why do you crave what you crave? Why are you binge eating? It's not that Sister Lisa eats 47 Rice Krispie treats at one time. She looks at it and doesn't go, oh, you shouldn't do that. She looks at it and goes, there's something in that your body was craving, and we've got to find out what it is. So that's why she is up here. I didn't want people to go, she's a doctor, but she talks about food. What's that got to do? Oh, it has so much to do with mental health. So let's start with the first question here. How does your faith inform your understanding and approach to mental health? Now, for you, you're coming at this kind of bivocational because you're looking at this from the spiritual apostolic woman, but you're also looking at this from the textbook and clients that you've dealt with. So why don't you share your wealth of knowledge to us?
Cool. Alrighty. So thank you, Sister Lisa, for the introduction. And yeah, I think mostly everyone knows that I'm a registered dietitian. We do not just look at what people eat and judge them on that. I actually do something called medical nutrition therapy. And because of that type of therapy, we dabble alongside mental health, because you can't fix your diet without first figuring out what's going on in your mind. I would say I personally was at a crux. And most healthcare professionals will agree to that as well, that we're not exempt from mental health illnesses, from any kind of conditions, no more than anyone else is. And when you do talk about well-being, the biggest thing to keep in mind is really understanding your brain is just like any other part in your body. And even though we can't see our brain, it gets sick just in the same way as anything else. And when we talk about, well, how does that apply to our faith? It's it's just as revelatory, finding out about your mental health and understanding it and being empowered by it, just as it is coming into the light of God. And the now, there's always generational differences, right? And we acknowledge those. We understand that for the younger generations, it's going to be much easier for them to articulate their feelings, their expressions, versus when you have someone who's middle aged or senior population, it was shunned, right? But those conditions were still the same, just in any other situation.
That's true.
And historically, we looked at things or God or medicine, faith or science. And now we're at a point that it's right?
Good. That's
And God doesn't put us in a position, or sorry, God equips his body to cover all areas, right? And there are doctors in our body, there are nurses in our body, there's dietitians in our body, and we're at a point now where these topics are no longer taboo.
That's right.
And we're trying to create a safe space where we can discuss these kind of issues more openly, more freely, because the sooner and more comfortable a congregation can get in disclosing or talking about what's going on with them, the easier it will be for them to heal.
That's good. Yes.
And so for me, how did my faith inform my understanding? It was an epiphany. The thing with well-being is that someone can be perfectly dressed and totally destroyed on the inside.
Oh, that's good.
And
Yes.
and it takes a lot to really come to terms with that. That it's not about how someone looks on the outside, but it's how they're coping with what they're going on. And so faith wise, for me, it was all about understanding that this isn't going to be something I'm going to figure out overnight,
Right.
and knowing that faith is a journey, just like your walk with God. It's the same thing with mental health. And a pastor once told me that if your journey through other issues, through food, through mental health, doesn't align with how things are taught and projected in the Bible, then something's off.
All right.
Then you know something's off. And so for me, it was equipping myself with and really taking time to understand what that journey looked like specific to mental health, and understanding what it meant to be in a sound mind, understanding that it's an evolving journey and that we're here, we have to be present. And so we have these, what I call side road items, that we'll always bring with each other, or we'll always bring with us, but how to be able to compartmentalize those intrusive thoughts, for example. And so for me, it was just really understanding that you don't have to suffer in silence.
That's right.
And that, understanding that we're all experiencing these issues, whether it's through our family, our mental health, or just anything. And understanding that just as we can come to God for those issues, there's no limit. And in the world, you may say things, or you may hear things like, I can't do this, but really understanding as we're going through this journey what it means to be, what it means to know that you're not alone, and that you're operating in an unlimited space.
That's so good. I love what you said about a generational thing. I grew up in the days of you didn't talk about mental health. You prayed about it and let God take care of it.
Yeah.
And if you needed to be on medication, then your faith wasn't high enough, or you had some sin in your life you weren't dealing with.
Yeah.
And so that's how it took me getting to adulthood before I realized. And it was actually my father. I said something one time about needing medication, and I put my head down and I was crying, and I told my dad, I said, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry that I've disappointed you, because here he was, a pastor. He said, Lisa, if you had diabetes, would you be upset that you needed to be on insulin? And I said, well, no, that's different. He said, the brain is like the pancreas. It's another organ in the body, and it's not functioning like it should right now.
Yeah.
And that's what opened my eyes for me, is to realize it's not faith versus
Yeah.
psychology.
Yeah.
We've demonized psychology for so long that we feel bad when we say, okay, I need help.
Yeah.
And in reality, but by the same token, I've seen psychologists who demonize faith. Well, you need to stop believing all that. You need to quit. No, I think it works together. I really
Right.
do.
That's right. And it's definitely an evolution, right? If you think
Yes.
about the medieval times and the
Yes.
plague doctors, they thought they were medical doctors of that time, but they thought to ward your way away from a cold or away from a virus was to smell and inhale incense, right?
Yeah.
It wasn't necessarily that approach was wrong. It's the fact that our knowledge has evolved.
That's it.
Yeah.
And I think, too, there were many pastors trying to protect their congregation because they were so afraid of having a whole congregation strung out on medication,
Yeah.
They're just like, oh, no, no, no. But in an attempt to avoid that, we left a whole bunch of people vulnerable. Therapy is not wrong. When we were talking about Sister Cindy Miller. She is licensed with the United Pentecostal Church. She's an apostolic counselor. She's absolutely fabulous. And she came to Virginia a couple years ago, and I was just soaking up everything she was saying. I was taking notes. And she said every day when they had dinner, or maybe it was on Sundays. Anyway, she said they would come in on Sundays and they would have dinner together, and they would go around and talk about what good thing happened that day and what thing they could learn a lesson from. She said, my children, would come in and be talking about school and all the things that happened. And she would say, okay, what is one thing you could learn? She didn't say what bad thing happened this week. What is something you learned you're going to handle differently the next time? She said, what you are doing, your brain has all these tabs open. When you are talking about something and you're resolving it, you're talking about, oh, this horrible thing happened to me. So the next time I'm going to know to do this, this, and this. She said, you're closing the tab. You're closing that down in your brain. And so that's what therapy does. When you go to a therapist and they have you talk, the therapist doesn't sit there and tell you, you need to do this, you need to do this. They're letting you talk because you're closing tabs in your brain. And a lot of times you're resolving things yourself, but it's saying it out loud. Why do you think the Bible talks so much about speaking to ourselves in psalms and hymns and spiritual songs? I don't know if you've ever listened to Sister Vonnie Marshall, Vani, Vonnie Marshall. She's another fabulous apostolic therapist. And she said, when we think negative thoughts, it cuts a path in your brain. And that's how we get those negative loops, because we forged a path in our brain with the negative thought, and it's so easy then to go back down that negative thought again. I can't do this. I did a horrible job. I'm not good at this. And so then every time you're faced with something, your first instinct is, I can't do this. I'm horrible at this. I'm not going to do well, because you're going down that same path. She said it literally cuts a path into the brain. And the only way you can heal that is by doing the opposite. You have to speak faith. You have to speak positive. And she said, when you begin to do the opposite, you're healing those trenches that are in your brain that you've cut. Now, if you've done 50 years worth of negative thinking, that's a lot of healing that's got to take place, but it can be done. Sister Leah. I'm sorry. I don't know why I thought you had a microphone back there.
Talking about the changing your thought process.
Yes.
Is a personal example is I struggle with my art. I will go through long phases of I can't do this, I can't do this. Well, I have created a portfolio of pieces I personally think are great. And
Good.
when I start going through that, I can't do that, I can't do that, I pull out my portfolio and start flipping through it and going, man, these are great. I can do this.
That's it. That's perfect example. Yes, you're healing those trenches that you've cut into the brain. Okay, let's go to question number 2. How can prayer and other spiritual disciplines help in maintaining mental and emotional health?
So it's not a surprise, right? Just as easy as it is to read the Bible, it's easy to apply these principles. Everything that you're gonna hear today, and you've probably might have picked up on this already, is that you're doing something. You have to do something.
That's it.
And it doesn't matter how small it is, how large of a step it is. It's the fact that you're putting action in the direction that you want to go to see that change.
That's good.
And God equips us with more than enough tools to be able to figure out how we can balance and maintain our mental health. So, we've heard all of these things. There's really no secret behind it, but we know prayer, journaling, reading your Bible, fasting, any kind of action, moving and worshiping to get those endorphins to help you to feel better, are going to produce a positive change forward. But I want to go from a different angle, and it's the angle that sometimes we sit with but don't necessarily feel comfortable sharing. And we hear over and over again, you have to pray your way out of this. You need to read, you need to put all of these actions in. But what about that heaviness that you feel when you're sitting in the chair?
Right.
When you lift your hands but still feel a fog over you? You know that you're distracted. And as badly as you don't want to acknowledge that, it's there, right? And so I actually challenge people to do the opposite. Yes, of course, always equip yourself with tools, but then to use what's going on towards the issue, right? So use the difficulty to build momentum towards a positive change. You're distracted. Okay, distraction is your scapegoat. That's what your brain is using to help you not focus on an issue, to get your mind to a different place. But let's rework that in a way where it's benefiting you. And so one thing that I always harp on is utilizing the power of distraction, the tools that God's given you, and using it as a way to fortify you. So if you know you're in service and you're just totally in a fog, acknowledge that I'm in a fog right now. I can't think I can hear the pastor. I think I can hear, but it is just not sinking in. And being able to use that to say, I need to listen twice as hard.
That's good.
If I can't hear pastor, I need to say it to myself. And that's where you start to build what's called concrete tools. So Leah used that as an example. She said, when I forget, I go back and I look at something tangible. I look at something that I can't erase. I can't make up. That portfolio is there in front of her. She can't recreate the artwork. She's not imagining it. It's there. The words that your pastor is saying, is there. And if you can't hear it, you need to speak it out so that you can hear it another way. You have to reinforce. If you're reading your Bible and you just feel like the words are just there on paper, you have to speak it out. You have to do things in a way that reinforces getting those tools together. And it's just like yeah, I'm always going to default to food because that's my crux, but it's just like our reaction to stress. Some of us won't eat. Some of us will overeat. It's the same process though. It's no different. And all it is that your mind is being distracted towards a something. And you have to take that and say, you're trying to look at work. So I'll use my personal example. If I'm stressed out, I'll feel that heaviness. And I'll try to work it out. Instead of taking care of myself, instead of eating, I'll forget to eat, as unhealthy as that is. I'll make up an excuse to justify it. And I'll say, oh, but I just have so many things to get done. If I just do those things, then I'll feel better, right? And so, we know though we have to compartmentalize that and say that's not going to help us. When we're scared, we won't show up to things. So you will see people not coming to church, for example. You have to stop that negative train of thought and say this won't help me. And you have to be very clear to yourself, very direct and very simple. I know that this is not going to help me. I know that not eating, or I know that overeating, this is not going to help me. And I have to really work to figure out what will.
And I think that right there is the key to the whole thing, but that's the hardest, is stopping ourselves when maybe you feel like you've hit rock bottom this week and I can't people this week. I just can't. I don't want to go to church. I can't be dealing with anyone. I don't want to see anyone. And it's so hard to stop ourselves in our tracks and go, wait, this is not good for me.
Yeah, and then that goes back to the God question. Are we supposed to be doing that by ourselves?
Right, exactly. That's good. When I was looking at this and I was thinking spiritual disciplines, okay, she and I did not compare notes, and I purposely did not do that because I wanted her to take this from, all the different aspects, and I'll come at it from the little church girl. Okay. So when we think of spiritual disciplines, fasting, prayer, Bible reading, those are the three that we always fall back on. So I did a little deep dive into these as far as how they relate to mental health. Fasting actually brings mental clarity and focus. Now, if you're like me and you're hypoglycemic and you go without food and then all of a sudden your blood sugar bottoms out and you're shaky and you're foggy, okay, take it slowly, but eventually you can stretch out those fasting hours to where you can go longer. On Tuesday, when I had to go in for this surgery, they told me not to eat or drink after midnight. Well, I went to bed at like 10 o'clock, so I hadn't eaten or drunk anything. I was so thirsty. But by the time I got there, and it's like the surgery was like 2 o'clock, my mind was so sharp. I wasn't doing the fuzzy thing. And so I realized there is some truth to that. With fasting comes clarity. And so if you feel that you're in that fog, or I can't find my way, I don't know what I'm supposed to be doing, fasting is one of those tools that you have in your belt, your tool belt, that can help give clarity and focus. Brother Paul, did you have something to add? Oh, okay. All right. Fasting can also, believe this or not, stress reduction. Fasting fosters calm and reduces anxiety. This is from a doctor, not from a preacher, okay? Fosters calm and reduces anxiety by allowing a purposeful pause from daily pressures. So, there's fasting. Bible reading, Bible studying gives you purpose and direction. By meditating on scripture, you find clarity. So when you combine your Bible reading and your fasting, you talk about some clarity there. Bible study also gives us self-worth because the Bible affirms our identity in Christ. We get caught up in what the world, we compare ourselves, and that can also cause some anxiety and depression when you're getting caught up in everything else and comparing. But when we look at the Word and we realize who we are in Him, and then prayer, oh my, this is from a doctor's perspective. Prayer is good for stress relief. Studies show prayer can decrease stress and promote relaxation responses in the body. There's a well-known pastor who just passed away this past week, and they said he was having a lot of memory issues and speech issues that he was fighting against. But they said every time he would go into prayer, his mind was fully functioning just like it was 20 years ago. I've shown before the brain scans of people when they are speaking in tongues, of how the brain scan is totally different.
So I wanted to interject.
Yeah,
you
go
said
ahead.
Two really important things. So the first one was when you were talking about fasting, and you said how when you looked at it from a 30,000 foot, that overnight fast was really hard. But then you just broke it down and you took it minute by minute,
Yes,
or hour by hour, just time by time. And before you knew it, it was 2:00 and you had that benefit.
Yeah.
And a lot of times that's the struggle we cope with. We're looking at things
That's
from a 10,000 foot
Yes.
perspective, and we're looking at a mountain to say, how can we overcome that?
That's good.
And so that when you feel like that, breaking tasks down will go a long way. And then the other thing you mentioned was the pastor and how he spoke things out. And so Sister Lisa had alluded to in the beginning, when you go to a therapist, we have a rule. It's a 95-5 rule. I talk 5%, you talk 95%. And the basis of that is that it's something called self-talk therapy, where you're talking out because you're hearing your message, you're speaking your message, and it's permeating in a deeper spot in your brain that isn't as affected by illnesses.
That's amazing. I love that. You actually made me think of something else. My husband sent me this reel this past week that was I wish I could remember now exactly their exact wording, but what it is, men think things through before they speak it. Generally speaking, men, they process everything before they say it. Generally for women, we have to talk to process. So if the man says, how about sushi for dinner? His mind's already made up. He wants sushi for dinner. The woman has to go, sushi for dinner. Okay, let me think. Have we had fish this week? I can't remember if I've had it. No, I haven't. Okay, that's good. And so now how long is it going to do? I have the stuff at the house to make. Yeah, we can do that. Okay, she's got to go through all of that to finally sushi for dinner. That sounds good. And I think it's like that in therapy. Men have a hard time opening up because they've already processed in their brain how to work this out. And that's a God-given tool. God gave men that inner instinct. They're supposed to be the problem solvers of the family, right? They're the ones, they're Mr. Fix-It. If you've ever read Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus, that's the one thing he talks about. The man comes in with his handy-dandy tool belt and he's ready to fix whatever you're having going on in your life. And so when we first got married, we both worked about in another city. It's like 20 minutes from where we lived. So on the way home, I would be talking about all the things, blah, blah, blah. This is going on and this is going on. And he's sitting there telling me, well, you need to do this and you need to tell them this. And finally, one day I went, I don't need you to answer this for me. I just need you to listen to me. That solved all of our problems. He would sit there and he'd think, I know the answer to this. I know how she can fix it. I know how she can fix it. But it took me 20 minutes of talking all the way home to go, how do you think I should fix this? So there you go. A little threw that in there. Back on prayer. Prayers of thanksgiving. This is from a doctor. Prayers of thanksgiving shift our focus to blessings, which counteract negativity, bias, and lift our mood. So we've talked before about gratitude journal, ending your day with being thankful. It actually, from a physical, medical, mental perspective, can help you. Healing and forgiveness is a whole other topic that I don't think we've got time to go into today. There are physical and mental manifestations from hurts and traumas of the past. So until we are willing to address these, we're going to keep carrying them around. I heard one therapist this past week. She said, we expect God to swoop in and take care of all of our problems and our issues of our past. And that's not how it is. She said, God is proactive, and he will not heal you if you are not willing to address the things that have happened in the past. So that is something that, maybe we'll save it for another day. Yes, Brother Paul, he's bringing the microphone to you.
I am for real this time. Sorry about that. For me, what's really worked, and I don't want to sound preachy.
No.
But in all of these areas, be completely transparent with God.
Yes,
because
absolutely.
He already knows anyway, and it's surprising to me how, just in the example of I'm trying to eat better, and I'm not ready for a salad, but he'll come alongside and say, now that you've included me, why don't you think about eating this instead of this chicken, instead of the beef that you want?
That's good.
So, yeah.
I love that. Absolutely. And there is something about audibly saying what you've been trying to hide. There is something about that. It's that whole thing like with AA. They say that, you're never really going to get over your addiction until you admit what you are addicted to. I am an alcoholic or whatever. I find it's the same way when I'm strutting through life thinking I'm hiding stuff from God. There is something that breaks when I actually open up and admit to him what he already knows anyway. You're right, Brother Paul. He already knows it. But being totally transparent, it's life-changing.
Anyway, is it pushed up? It's pushed. Yeah. Okay. There we go. So, going off of what Brother Paul had mentioned about being totally transparent, I had looked up apostolic counselors because I wanted to see. I know the things that I go through, like if it's anxiety or things like that. But I was really curious to see what issues do apostolic counselors address, and what issues are they seeing in church that deserves that transparency. And I learned things that I don't even think I considered. And for one, therapy is something that can be given from infants to older adults.
Oh, wow.
And helping them to process any kind of trauma that they are experiencing, whether it's with a caretaker on both ends, or if it's something that they dealt with, like you said, childhood trauma. And so I looked up some of the issues that apostolic counselors address, and I was shocked because we're almost at such a long way off of being able to just openly say these things that I was concerned about even saying them out loud because it just felt so uncomfortable. So the first it's about 5 different things, and the first thing that I learned was helping people through life cycles, just growing, and being able to hey, normalize. Yes, you're experiencing this as a part of you going through menopause. And yeah, this is going to affect your mental health, your presence, your fatigue. You're tired when you come to church. Your ministry might look different. This is a part of life change, normal life change. Going through the natural aging process and coming to terms with, we always say we're going to rejoice in the presence of the Lord, but we don't necessarily talk about the effects that lead up to that, right? And the emotions, the healthy emotions that lead up to that natural transition. Some other things that they beg are openly shared is addressing family trauma and healthy thinking. So not just stopping at the trauma, but going and building out that positivity. Being able to minister to individuals with personality disorders, understanding that bipolar disorder is here, and that there are a slew of other different types of personality disorders that are going to affect how someone views not even church, but the people within it. And another thing, overcoming pornography addiction and supporting ethical boundaries. Ethical boundaries may be something like acknowledging that you have this issue and not putting yourself in children's ministry, those kind of things. And understanding that you may not have to disclose those troubles, but if someone may look at the outside of a person and say, your personality is great, I think you would be awesome to work with kids. And then you understanding how you have to position that so that you don't, because you can still be used by God in any of those situations, but understanding that you have that support.
You got to own it. You have to own it.
Oh, yeah.
Yes, that's it.
I can tell you, right up until just a few years, in 1978, I lost a man to drowning. Of course, my NC said he was in the water too long. Personally, when my crew and I got him on board the boat, they couldn't do anything but walk around in a blind, in a fog, like you said. I got the boat to the dock. I could do the resuscitation with heart compressions. I could not put my mouth on his. It's taken me over 30 years, 40 years to own it.
All right. Yeah.
And you're ashamed of what you can't do.
Right.
And so you don't want anybody to know. But you have to face it eventually.
That's good.
And when you face it, you get the victory over it.
That's it.
I have anxiety. What has helped me with my anxiety and my stresses, I always read Jeremiah. Jeremiah was stressed to the max. David, if David wasn't suffering from anxiety, fear, and stress, he'd have never been running from Saul. These guys had problems.
Right.
Just like we have problems. And I've had to own these things.
That's good.
So
yes,
it's just something you have to face.
That's right. And as hard as it is to own it, there's a freedom that comes from once you've broken through and you admit what you're going through. I've tried to think, well, how come we need all this therapy stuff? You don't see any of that in the Bible days, like you were talking about life stages. Oh my, I wish so badly that was talked about. The bishop had a hard time stepping back from running 90 miles an hour. He was 80 years old and felt like he was failing God because he couldn't run and teach 15 Bible studies a week. There was nobody to tell him at this stage of life, you can slow down and still work for God. But when I think about the Bible days, they were so community minded. They were so community oriented. Families were living all right there together, and everybody took care of everybody. So when you were going through something new, you had 15 other people there to help you. Hey, here's what's going to happen.
Yeah, and that goes into isolation.
Exactly.
Yeah. So those are a lot of the issues that are common for us to face, and I realized that it's how you frame it.
Yes.
And so some of the other things that were in that we experienced and open with sharing. So I like how you shared about post-traumatic stress and how that affects you 40 years after the fact. For the apostolic counselors and a lot of other counselors, they employ methods for that. So I know we're not going to touch on things like suicide prevention, grief support, but there's something called EMDR therapy. It is eye movement desensitization and reprocessing. What you see and how that affects your thinking is very real.
Yes.
And especially if you're in that moment and you're experiencing that. And a lot of these things these therapies are designed to help individuals heal from that emotional distress that's caused by those traumatic or disturbing events. And then just two other things that I thought were important were you have the intimate partner violence awareness, being aware that happens, and also knowing how to report that abuse.
That's good.
Thriving as leaders through self-care, and I have a resource for that. And so it's a very global thing that we're experiencing.
We have 3 minutes, and so I don't want to stop without us going through resources, because I know you have a lot of resources. Question number 3, what resources or practices have you found helpful for mental well-being that align with Christian principles? And if you don't mind, this afternoon, maybe we could put these in the church app, and that way you will have access to resources to help with mental health. Go ahead.
So first and foremost, you have to seek wise godly counseling.
Yes.
And embrace being vulnerable, embrace being transparent. I always will say, we know the Bible verses about protecting our ear and eye gates, right? You have to caution your inputs, protect your mind, being mindful of what you're doing, what you're watching, who you're speaking to, and making sure that it is a resource that is actually there to help. Idle minds breed destruction. So as heavy as you would feel in that moment, you have to work twice as hard to counter it. And so we need support. That is just the basis of God. Like, we cannot do this on our own. And it's the same thing with mental health. And so a lot of times tangible things, a piece of paper in front of you, will help. And so a couple resources that I give my clients it's called a self-care inventory, and I'll post it, but it's a 2-page sheet that just goes into your spiritual health, your mind, your body, your eating habits. And it says, in this stressful time right now, how do you feel? And what you'll find out after going through that inventory is that stress or trauma is transitional, and it builds over time. It's those little steps that accumulate. And so what you'll find is that you slowly let some things go. And the sheet will help you realize that on paper, wow, there's 10 things listed. I only do 3 of them. So that was the first thing that I always give out to people. And I tell them, do this every 6 months, and you'll realize the cycles that you naturally go through. Books, I'm a book person. I read books like Calm My Anxious Heart, a self-love workbook for women. There are a slew of different tools available. And then lastly, the tool that I sort of alluded to was apostolic counseling. And there is a ministry endorsed by UPCI on apostolic counseling. So this is a huge issue. This is not something that is just found within our church, but this is something that is affecting everybody nationally and globally. And so there is the Center for Apostolic Counseling that is designed to support missionaries, pastors, and saints of God through direct counseling, through telemental health services, so virtual health appointments, seminars, workshops, and conferences. And that's apostoliccounseling.org. And what they will do is to help build out a safe space for you to be able to share your heart with people who share your beliefs. And even this next month in May, there's something called a Sound Mind Mental Health Summit, where you'll learn these kind of tools and how you can help better navigate mental health challenges through faith-based practices. And so I could share forever. But we're at a point now, and this is really a charge message. We're at a point now where it's no longer acceptable, though we would want to. It's no longer acceptable to just sit with the issues anymore.
That's good.
We
Yes.
have entirely too many resources
Absolutely.
through church, through our family, through our support, to be able to say, I'm going through something right now, and I cannot shake this feeling. Going to God, going to your pastor, and reaching out. We're in a time now, 2025, where it is okay to talk about these issues.
Yes.
And rather, we have to keep saying this a million times. We will never get sick of this. We will never get tired of saying it is okay to struggle.
Yes.
And we're not here to judge.
Yes. It's okay to not be okay. Yes. Absolutely. Thank you all so much. Thank you to Sister Arnetta for her great wisdom. Keep looking at the church app. We will try to get these resources in there, some links for you that you can run to, and always run to him first. Thank you. We're going to take a 13-minute break, and then we'll be back here to worship. God bless.